The San Jose Sharks' future is in fantastic hands. From Macklin Celebrini cementing himself among the National Hockey League's elite talents to a whole bunch of youngsters developing at a quick rate in the system, this team's future's got it all.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian Hine, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's episode, we are going to be breaking down and updating you on the San Jose Sharks prospect pool. There's a bunch of youngsters, whether it be on the NHL team already, and NHL rookies, and just young studs like Macklin Celebrini, to the AHL, which we'll be breaking down in the second segment, the players that stood out there in my viewings with the Barracuda. And finally, looking at the other players in the Sharks system playing in the OHL, in the NCAA, and elsewhere that are also developing quite nicely. So we're looking at a total of 17 players here today. So if you're looking for some content, quickly breaking down a whole bunch of players in the Sharks system, this is the episode for you, my friends. But before we jump into the show, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So if you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So the Sharks are a fascinating team to watch this season because they have one of the most dynamic talents in the entire National Hockey League with Macklin Celebrini, and he really has become the focal point, not just of the offense of this team, but how every single play is run when he's on the ice. Everything flows through him. You need an outlet option in the defensive zone. Macklin Celebrini's there. If you want a guy to just break through the neutral zone and get you a controlled entry at speed and putting defenders on their heels, well, that's Macklin Celebrini's bread and butter as well. And on top of obviously finishing chances, he's scoring goals this season. He sits top 3 in the National Hockey League in points at the time of recording, with 14 goals and 37 points in 26 games. This kid has been on fire. His second year in the National Hockey League, his first year with an A on his shirt, and the last couple games have just been tremendous. He had a really great 2-assist performance against Vancouver on Friday night. If you go back to a couple weeks ago against the Utah Mammoth, 3-2 victory for San Jose, all 3 goals coming off of Celebrini's stick. This kid brings so much speed, so much intelligence, so much elite processing of the game. He does everything at a tremendous pace, very competitive, very hardworking, moves around the ice with a fluidity and intensity that few other forwards his age can match. And he's just been phenomenal for the San Jose Sharks, and every single thing that they could have hoped that he would become when they got that first overall pick at the draft lottery and started penciling in Celebrini as their 1C of the future. Well, that future is here today, folks. He's not only the first-line center on the San Jose Sharks, he's among the most dynamic top-line centers in the entire National Hockey League. And yeah, there are definitely still some hurdles here and there. I know, early in the season, there was a certain back check at the end of an overtime shift that got memed a little bit. But overall, Celebrini's just been worth his weight in gold for this team. He is easily their most valuable, their most important, their most vital cog already. So you can't really hope for much more than that for a first overall selection. But Sharks fans, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube. What has it been like to have Macklin Celebrini break out this season? How's that experience been like for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts because I know for myself as a young fan growing up in Montreal, that year with the Yaroslav Halak year in 2010 when he had that massive playoff run, just completely stonewalling the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. That was such a magical moment, just like when Sidney Crosby scored that golden goal. But I think that for Sharks fans that have been through all the misery of this rebuild and a lot of years of not being competitive anymore, finally having a player that's doing these just astonishing things night in, night out, it's got to be up there in terms of your top memories as a hockey fan. So please do let me know down below. But moving on, we've got his partner in crime, Will Smith. Who has also been a shining light for the Sharks this season. He's at second in team scoring behind Celebrini with 10 goals and 24 points in 26 games, well over his pace from last season where he was clipping at about 50-point pace on the year. And yeah, really, really nice to see with Smith. I mean, the creativity and the intelligence, the playmaking skill, the handling ability, these have always been massive parts of what has made Will Smith so special. But what's impressed me the most so far this season in the viewings I've had is just he's got an extra little pep in his step. The motor's gotten a bit better. The physicality is better. He's able to resist contact a bit more in the middle of the ice. It's still something I think he needs to continue to work on. But the fact that we've seen strides here and that is also translating into production, into habits of being in those congested spaces more regularly than he was last year, I think is a really good sign. And he's playing big minutes, really top line minutes for this season. And overall, I think that with Will Smith, you have a player with all the talent in the world who is now figuring out how to leverage that for sustainable offense in the National Hockey League. And he's a bit, I would say, streakier than Celebrini in his scoring. Celebrini's just the model of consistency. I find that every single game I watch him, he's as creative, as gifted, as effective offensively as the last. With Will Smith, I've always found that it's a kind of 2 games on, one game off, or something along those lines in terms of effectiveness. And I still see that a bit here this season. That's still youth and immaturity, right? He has time to grow out of this at the age of 20, but he's definitely taken a step there this season where he's quite clearly the number 2 threat on the offense, and I think he's leapfrogged a guy like William Eklund, for instance, for that role on this team. So Will Smith definitely developing quite nicely. Then we've got Michael Misa, who of course is unfortunately injured for the time being. He's only played in 7 games this season. The recent second overall selection. He wasn't used all that much when he was making the lineup. He was averaging about 11, 12 minutes a night there with the Sharks, and he had 3 points to go with his efforts. But I would say that with Misa, I would not be shocked if he were returned to the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL this season when he gets when he's healthy again. That being said, if he does stick around, I would hope for a bit more like offensive zone starts with top line pieces of like maybe even if you're playing on the 4th line, or just give him 1 or 2 shifts a period on that top line. I think that could go a long way in his development. But I'm curious to hear what Sharks fans think of where you think Misa should play this year and where you think he might fit into your lineup next season. Because if he is loaned back to the OHL, I assume it will be only for a single year because this guy is very detailed, very intelligent, and I think that the OHL does not challenge him, or at least would not challenge him enough next season. I think for this year, with the slow start, the injury, could be a really nice thing to get his footing again and maybe go back to the OHL with a particular checklist of things to focus on. Like we saw a player like Nick Suzuki do this in his final OHL season. The Montreal Canadiens, after trading for him, gave him a bullet list of what he had to focus on, and that meant that he wasn't actually trying to necessarily leverage every single thing he could at the junior level. He was trying to hone in on the things that would continue to work in the National Hockey League, not just using the time and space that's being offered because it's there, but really trying to challenge himself to still continue growing and developing, even if the level of competition lay beneath him. Then we've got Shakir Mukhamadullin, the big left shot defenseman, who has always been a bit of a mystery in my eyes. A very fascinating player. He's a fantastic skater at his size, got a really nice slap shot from the point. I think that he is also a player that has flashed the ability to move the puck from the blue line and get involved offensively. But I think that he's at his best while using his range defensively. Difficult to get around, but the decision making on puck is a little bit erratic still in my viewings. But I haven't watched him that much at the NHL level yet. So this season, when I have tuned into the Sharks, I've mostly been mesmerized by Celebrini and looking at Yaroslav Askarov, for instance, who's also been tremendous, of course. But yeah, Mukhamadulin's always been a fascinating prospect and a guy that I think really does have some like number 4, number 5 upside in NHL defensive core if he's able to gain some consistency. And I know that consistency is also something that they're definitely talking about internally about this player. But he's gotten into more and more games this season, played 13 games. He has 5 points in that stretch, mostly on the third pairing. But he was playing very regularly throughout November. I think he played every single game in November for the Sharks, if I'm not mistaken here. And yeah, really nice to see him finally hitting the NHL and getting regular minutes. Then we've got Sam Dickinson as our penultimate player here in the first segment. And Dickinson is also playing sheltered minutes on the bottom pair, really averaging 15 minutes a night, maybe, yeah, about 15 a night. And he's played in 19 games so far this season. So got healthy scratch a couple times when he was still within that 9-game window before or up until which he could have theoretically been sent back to the London Knights here to complete the season. But no, the Sharks decide to keep him in a sheltered role, giving him offensive starts, and he hasn't really been able to pay that back with offensive production just yet. 1 goal, 2 points in 19 games, but he's a guy that I think physically looks so much like an NHLer that you expect him to be that type of player off the bat. In a sense, I think maybe the expectations were almost blown up a little bit for how soon he could be something special for this team, because he's had an NHLer's body since he was 17 years old, and he has all the tools, right? The mobility is great, the physicality, the strength, the sturdiness on his feet, but the decision making, the pace of processing. The NHL is a really big step up, and I've only watched him like closely in 2 games this season, and he was getting about 12 minutes in each of them. And both times I saw a player that was a little bit on his heels from just how quickly things were moving. And when he did have the puck on his stick and was trying to do things, I also felt like there's a bit of a lack of confidence on puck right now. But maybe your impressions are different if you're watching this team every single night, because I'm not. So please let me know down below, Sharks fans, what your impressions have been of Sam Dickinson. And last but not least, we're ending this first segment on a high note. We've got Yaroslav Askarov, the goaltender, who's become the starter in San Jose and has been tremendous over the course of November. In his last 10 games, he's got a .947 save percentage, which is just absolutely insane. He struggled out of the gate this season. His numbers were not looking good, and now they've stabilized at a really solid 910. But don't let that seemingly modest number fool you. He has been dominant over the course of this past month, and he's a player that has always had the athleticism, the dynamism from the crease. I mean, this guy is just pure entertainment when he wants to be, but I think he's gotten way better at also knowing when to have those explosive moments, those dynamic moments, and to also mitigate needing to do them as often, being a bit more composed and stable in the crease than he used to be. He's tracking pucks way better than I remember him doing even just a year or two ago. And I think he's becoming a really calming presence in the crease for the Sharks team, and has been a really big part of them going 8-2 in their last 10 games. The Sharks have been on absolute fire here recently, and Askarov has arguably been the biggest part of this. And that's even considering Celebrini's impact, which of course is massive, but at least in this sample size, Askarov was the best player in the game every single time I tuned in to watch a Shark period. But that wraps up this first segment. In the next one, we're going to head to the AHL to look at some standouts over there. But before we do that, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, and even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop is not your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands, using a science backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top collagen pro teams. I like using Drip Drop as part of my morning routine. I'll mix in a packet before going to the gym or during that midday slump if I need a pick me up. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. All right, let's keep this show rolling as we're starting to look at the players in the American Hockey League. If you missed it, yesterday I posted an episode on AHL starlets, players that have just been dominant in the American Hockey League across the NHL, and 2 Sharks players came up here. Quentin Musty and Igor Chernyshov, and they have both been fantastic this season, flirting with a point a game, playing really inside driven, using their bodies really well. Different types of players. I mean, Chernyshov is your classic power forward, while Musty is a bigger guy, but more of a skilled player and a creator, whereas Chernyshov is a hustler more than anything else. And because I talked about them yesterday, I will be focusing on other players here for these highlights, but I did want to still give them a quick shout out because they have been fantastic this year. We do also have Philip Bichette, of course, in the AHL with the Barracuda, who has 16 points in 18 games this season. The 6'2", 190-pound forward. And he's a player that I've always loved the speed of, the power in his stride, has a pretty good shot as well that he likes to use quite a bit. And that quick release in stride, in motion, off the rush is something that I've seen really like threaten goaltenders, even from slightly constrained angles. And on top of that, I've also liked his defensive hustle this season. The intelligence, the awareness, I think, is there as a foundation, and he's really picking his spots and timing his implications really nicely this season, while still being able to just hold a box, for instance, on the penalty kill, where he's been also getting some shifts and stay in position and not be overly aggressive, which I remember was a bit more of an issue in his draft year when he was playing PK, that he was very aggressive and kind of left stranded a couple of times. So Bichette is developing nicely, and I could definitely see him playing bottom 6 minutes for the Sharks at some point in the next year or two, especially if some of the vets get sold off at the deadline or in the offseason. Of course, Luca Cagnoni is still running things on the blue line with the Barracuda, a player with just so much entertainment that he's able to produce on the ice. The dynamic edge work, the mobility, the overall creativity as a puck mover. He runs the power play really effectively. He has 15 points in 18 games this season. Still really getting involved, loving that give and go game. And I've seen him kind of step forward a little bit more often to also use his shot as a threat this season. He's always had a shooting threat, but I'm seeing him use it more frequently to also open up passing opportunities, which I think is something he will have to do at a good level if he is to establish himself as a puck mover and connector in the offensive zone in the National Hockey League. Then we have Cameron Lund, who's playing his first professional season here this year. He got into 11 games with the Sharks at the tail end of last season after signing his entry-level deal out of Northeastern University. But I think that giving him some time in the AHL is the good play at this point. And he's adapting really quickly. I think that the in-transition playmaking is something that's translating quite nicely. He has an NHL caliber shot as well. but I think it's really the playmaking that's kind of allowed him to thrive in an offensive role so far this season, where the passing ability was something he really honed and improved on throughout his college years. And I think it's quite clear as well that that is the case here this season, with 9 assists and 10 points in 13 games so far on the campaign. And Cam Lund is a player that I had some doubts about when he was a draft eligible in the USHL. He tried a lot of things in transition at speed, but just had a lot of junior habits. But Northeastern, I think, was a great program for him specifically. He spent 3 full seasons there and came out of there with a lot more two-way details, a lot more support habits to also work together with his line mates when he is going on his rushes, not just going solo all the time, not just going cowboy basically off the rush, and instead still working at speed, but in close quarters with teammates for those quick little passes and exchanges and rotations. And I think that kind of game would suit itself quite nicely in the NHL when he does get his eventual call up at some point in the next couple seasons. Then we also still have Kasper Halttunen as the second to last player in the AHL I want to mention. And this is also his first full season in the professional realm. He was playing still with the London Knights last season before getting into 6 games with the Barracuda at year's end, producing 4 points. But this season in 18 games, he's got 8 points on the year. He's a guy that the shot is really the big thing. I still have a bit of a question of what else he's going to bring in the National Hockey League, because he's going to compete with so many young players that are going to make that jump in the next 2 or 3 years, and he's going to have to set himself apart. And of course, the shot is an element for that, and he has a physical power game as well that flashes, but I want to see that come out more. I want it to be more dominant, ideally, if he is to make that jump with a bit more zeal and menace, perhaps, on the physical side of the game. But so far this year, I think that playing in the AHL is really a great kind of development ground for the exact style of game that he needs to grow more into to be effective in the National Hockey League with his toolkit. That shot is fantastic, but he's going to have to be involved in his own end. He's going to have to be responsible defensively, because I think we're talking about a bottom 6 like depth scorer, a guy that can score from down the lineup, move up if you need him to, but he can offer kind of that physical side of the game in his own end and on the power plays and net front presence if you want him there. But that wraps up this second segment. In the final one, we're going to look at some players that are developing in college hockey and beyond outside of the Sharks system. But before we do that, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds in front of you. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips over after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that you can adjust instantly, play your props and update as guys heat up, and you can even bet on the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, let's wrap up the show here talking about the San Jose Sharks and just updating you on how they are developing in the system here. And we're going to kick things off with the University of Michigan's really impressive middle 6 two-way center here this season, freshman Cole McKinney, who was drafted 53rd overall in the second round here this past June. And he's gotten off to a great start to life playing on the third line with the Michigan Wolverines. And this has been the best team in college to start the season. And in 18 games, he's got 5 goals and 11 points. But production's never going to be the entire name of the game for McKinney. He is an absolute engine on the ice, incredibly hardworking. He's gotten a lot better in the last 2 years at connecting plays between his wingers, being a real kind of fulcrum to the transition, to the breakout. He drops low in support, hardworking, hard-nosed offensively. Offensively can get to the net front. He's very sturdy. Not the biggest guy in the world in height at 6 feet tall, but he's already over 200 pounds as a right shot center. He's so tough to move off the puck. And that style, that frame, that profile has been exactly what Michigan needed down the middle. They needed somebody to stabilize. They needed somebody to just be that engine going up and down the ice all night long, carrying his team with him, while not being the most dynamic guy on the ice, being able to connect to the players that have perhaps a bit more individual skill. And McKinney has been so important for that lineup this season. Then Teddy Mutryn with the Moncton Wildcats was really fun to watch in the USHL last season with the Chicago Steel, and has gotten off to a great start to life as well with the Moncton Wildcats in the QMJHL here this campaign. 10 goals, 24 points in 21 games for the 6'1", 209-pound right shot forward. He's playing more and more at center as well, which I think is great news for his development, but he's just as capable on the wing. And he's a player that brings, just like McKinney, ceaseless intensity and a lot of physicality. This guy is a spark plug. He loves to finish his checks. He likes to initiate contact. He's not afraid of bumping into defenders while he has the puck on his stick to try to force his way to the middle of the ice. And he's also a guy that has a good enough shot to finish his chances with impressive regularity. And I think on top of that, he has a mindset, a competitiveness that just makes him tailor-made for pro hockey. And he's almost impossible to knock off of pucks down low. He's so sturdy, and he's just constantly applying pressure on the forecheck. He's the type of guy that you want in your bottom six when you are entering your contending stages as a team. And Mutryn's development is ticking along so nicely. Then we've got Eric Polkamp with the University of Denver and in the NCAA, and he is just one of the funnest offensive defensemen in college hockey. He's been an absolute dynamo with Denver ever since transferring from Bemidji State University after the 2024 season. And he's just, 11 goals in 15 games from the blue line. Do I need to say more? He matched his goal total from last year. And last year he had a lot of goals. 11 goals in 44 games from the blue line, one every 4 games. That's something notable. And he's just matched it in 15 games. He's got also 6 assists on the season, so 17 points on the year. And he's been playing over 29 minutes in quite a few games here this season, including a recent 6-5 loss to the University of Minnesota on Saturday night. But he did log a goal and 10 shots on net in that game. This guy loves to shoot the puck. He moves quite well, and he has massive hits in open ice. He loves to finish his checks. That combination of goal scoring physicality. If you're the Sharks front office in terms of ideal number 4, number 5 defenseman long term, if this is your offensive guy on your bottom pairing, you are living a good life. And he definitely has the offensive talent to play up the lineup as well. So Eric Polkamp is a player that should be making his pro debut at the end of this season. I'd be surprised if he goes back for another year in college after this one. And he should be an important part of the San Jose Barracuda if he doesn't crack the Sharks lineup out of camp. And honestly, I think he might. I think there's a chance he plays with the Sharks full-time as of October of next year. So definitely a player to keep a very close eye on if you are a Sharks fan. We're moving on to Carson Wetch in the WHL with the Kelowna Rockets. A big, hard-hitting, very kind of linear north-south winger, 6'2", 201 pounds. And he's the captain of the Kelowna Rockets here this season after being traded there in the off-season from the Calgary Hitmen. And he's up to 7 goals and 24 points in 21 games so far. Is the first time in his career that he's hovering over a point a game. And what I've loved to see is that last year you had a massive mismatch between his goal scoring output and the play and the passing and the assists assist creation, 33 goals to 19 assists. This year, it's 7 goals, 17 assists. And I've watched him once, I believe, as well. And he was a lot more connective, a lot more pass friendly. I'm not sure if it's the environment in Kelowna where he feels like he has more passing options, but he's just so tailor made for a bottom six role in the National Hockey League, and it's clear every single night. He's incredibly intense. He's strong in the forecheck. He drives the net hard. He's a net crasher, and he's just impactful night in, night out of sheer effort alone, if nothing else. Not the most skilled player in the Sharks pool, but a guy that I think has an inside track at playing a fourth line role long term on this team. Then we're going to Joey Muldowney of the University of Connecticut in the NCAA, who had an absolutely ridiculous goal scoring tear, especially in the back half of last season. And he finished the year with 29 goals in 39 games to go alongside 18 assists for 47 points. This season, UConn has struggled a little bit more in the offensive department, and just I think overall they haven't been as good as they were last season. And in 12 games, he has 6 goals, 2 assists for 8 points. He's still very trigger happy, still shooting the puck quite a lot, and just not quite finding the back of the net as frequently. I mean, the luck he had, well, the puck luck, the shooting percentage luck that he had last season was never going to be sustainable. But I wish that he were a bit more involved in terms of playmaking and using his shot to open up passing lanes. I saw it in flashes at the end of last season when he was on such a hot tear offensively. I've seen that less this season. So definitely a player to monitor who has a lot of skill, has second line skill, but still has a long way to go, I think, to crystallize into an NHL caliber piece. But to wrap up the show, we've got another goaltender. After talking about Askarov in the first segment, we've got Joshua Ravensbergen here from the Prince George Cougars in the WHL. Big 6'5" netminder that they drafted at 30th overall here this most recent draft, and he's up at a .920 save percentage in Prince George in 19 games this season, a 13-6-0 record, and he's been among the WHL's most game-breaking goaltenders. He exudes confidence. He's able to start almost every single game for his team. He got a lot of stamina. Is able to also face big workloads. Had 3 nights in a row to start off November. I remember watching 2 of these games where he faced 39 or more shots. It was 39, 39, and 40 in those 3 games. And across the 3 games, he only let in 8 goals, and they won 2 of them. So, and the one that they lost was his best game when he had 38 saves on 40 shots, but they lost 2-1 to Wenatchee. But Joshua Ravensbergen brings a lot of poise and calmness and intelligence in net. He's quite athletic as well, but I think it's really in his puck tracking and positioning and intelligence from the crease that the play reading that makes him special for this organization. And I think it's great to have a player like this in the Sharks pool, a very different style of netminder to Yaroslav Askarov. So if the idea in the future is to have these 2 guys as a pairing, which I assume is kind of the tentative plan internally, then you have your dynamic starting netminder with Askarov, and then you have a 1B who oozes calm and confidence and poise with Ravensbergen. I think as a duo, they could play off of each other really well, and you could also use them in matchups depending what your team needs on a given night. Ravensbergen, I think, was a really astute selection from the Sharks front office there at the draft, and he's been progressing very nicely this season, going up from a .901 save percentage last season to .920 this year. But that wraps up the show here for us today. I hope that you enjoyed, Sharks fans. I assume mostly it's Sharks fans listening. And I love making this. The Sharks are a fascinating organization, and doing some of the research for this episode, watching some of the games to see how the players are faring, how they're advancing, how they're developing. There's so much reason to be excited for this team. You have a lot of prospects in the pool that are not necessarily game breakers. I think most of the game breakers are already in the National Hockey League at this very moment. But you have a lot of reinforcements and depth pieces, but they all have such distinct roles. They're going to slot in exactly at what they do well when they hit the National Hockey League. They have an established identity. And I think that the Sharks are kind of putting this jigsaw puzzle that is an NHL team together, and they're making some pretty good choices when they go fishing into the puzzle piece bag for the players that they want to add into their core. And I think that Joshua Ravensbergen is an example of that, of especially how he could play off of Askarov, because again, they spent a first round pick on this guy a year into knowing that Askarov was going to be their goaltender of the future in all likelihood. And yeah, I like the way that they build their team, and I think we're starting to see the results in the NHL. I mean, that big time win streak throughout November is certainly something to bring smiles to dreary faces after all these years of rebuilding. And yeah, this was a fun one, but that is it here for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And for your second listen, you're going to head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. Thank you so much again. That's it from me. I'm your host, Sebastian High, and I'll catch you listening again very, very soon.